So what
Okay,
were
I'm
you
back.
saying? You were talking about how,
This friend that I had connected with.
yeah, and your journey, like the idea of starting your journey, but realizing like it's not really starting, you're just every day
Yeah.
something comes up that you remember. What was that about?
Yeah, that it feels like to say, oh, 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 7 years ago when I started this journey, it doesn't feel like I'm honoring all the moments throughout what feels like my entire life where I had glimpses of this that I was denying or ignoring or I didn't have the courage to honor. Um, so it's when I was speaking with this friend and she started several years ago talking about learning more about communicating with animals and wanting to follow this path more. Anyways, we had this fabulous conversation and connection the other day, even though we rarely connect. That came up, that concept of all of a sudden both of us feel like we're finally honoring this, that we're finally opening
Totally.
up to it.
So honestly, that's what it's like for me too. Like when I'm sharing the tools and stuff, is I don't feel like I'm teaching people something new that they don't know. I feel like I'm sharing like windows into how you can remember what you may have already experienced when you were younger, like before you started trying to win or compete or, be the best or be presentable or what, have a
What you thought you were supposed to be, right?
exactly,
Right. Right.
exactly. Because it's there, that the part that's innate in all of us, it's always already there. And at different levels of awareness, right? Because some of us have more um, uh, innate awareness of those connections, but other people will say, oh no, I wasn't aware of that as a kid, but yet they might tell stories of the cat that they would hang out with or the tree they always felt comfortable next to. It's all the same thing. It's just a gradient of how aware we were of what we were feeling at the time, and to even, I don't know, be cognizant that it's something to be aware of.
I was just going to say that I think there are different levels of, I think if you allow yourself to be aware of it, if you allow yourself to look at it like that
Mhm.
as you were as a child, when I think of myself as a child and all those moments when I wonder, I mean, the word wonder for me, and interestingly enough, to segue that word, since shifting gears, since honoring this practice, since creating this space to be with horses and people, all of a sudden the word wonder has jumped back in my life
Amazing.
like it did when I was a kid.
Wow.
And so I think even if I had spoken with you 5 years ago, I might say, well, I don't think I had that level of awareness necessarily. Now I think, oh my gosh, I did. It's just taken me a while to even honor that or have the courage to admit that a little bit.
Yeah,
If that makes any sense.
it makes perfect sense. Well, because okay, so when we feel it when we're little kids, it might just be the way things are. But if we don't have adults around us using language, giving us language and vocabulary to be able to express what we sense, what we feel, or to validate it, and when, I don't know, for me, one example was saying things like, the dog doesn't like it when you talk to him that way. The dog, I didn't say the dog, I said Punchki, that was his name. He doesn't like it when you talk to him that way. And what the response that came back to me was, Kerri, it's just a dog. The dog is not talking to you. Right. And so even though when we're young, we might be trying to express things, sometimes they get shut down from the outside. And so we learn to shut ourselves down early. Right. And
To survive,
exactly.
especially if you're really feeling and you don't have access to the ability to say, no, this is how I see it, but instead you shut down to survive.
Absolutely. And it is, all those little things, those little shutdowns, when you're young, emotionally and physically, when a door just kind of, or a wall comes and hits your energy and hits your wonder, it is a little trauma. Sometimes it's a big trauma. And
Cumulatively, it can feel like a big trauma too, right? Or
absolutely,
yeah.
yes. And so like walking ourselves back into feel and sense and intuition and communication it is a healing journey, and it can feel like we have to face these old traumas that we learned how to survive by shutting ourselves down. And we start shutting ourselves down, the mind can take over and say, well, I'll just use a whip, I'll just get him to do it like this, or I just have to do what my teacher says, or if I'm going to win, this is what I have to do to win.
Or that's such a great technique, but you're not actually getting the results done fast enough. And if you come back to me, it's that much of a draw that the mind, can try to pull you back. Like, well, you're not performing like you used, that kind of thing. When in fact, yeah,
Performance, yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. A lot of people ask me too, like, and I think, well, a few people ask it out loud, but I think a lot of people think about it, is can you be sensitive and perform well at the same time, right? Can you have high performance from a place of depth and connection and communication, right? And I think some people think, oh, well, you have to be, Frederick Pignon, you have to be one of these people that have the gift in order to have that. And I don't know, what do you think about it?
I love that question because it's similar to the can you be and do at the same time. It's similar to that, but it's more specific to, let's say, conventional riding and training. Can you do this and perform or show, or I think I light up when you're talking, because when I can push my mind aside, when I can quiet my ego and embrace the practice of being with the horses and opening my heart center and taking 10 seconds, when I'm in that space,
Yeah.
things happen, and I would no longer define them as performance, but from the exterior they
Yeah.
would look to anybody like performance. In fact, this feels like I'm betraying my conversation, because it's the horses are quote unquote performing far beyond what they would have been using techniques I would have used that were training techniques.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Like, but it's not, for me, it's not performance anymore. It's not something I'm seeking. It's something I'm experiencing with them.
That's
So
powerful.
it's what it looks like on the surface. So would I say that you can still perform? I think you can have an experience with the horse. Like I think the word is catchy for me. You know what I mean? I get stuck on the word because it feels like betraying what we're sharing. But my gosh, what you can experience with the horse is far beyond, whether it's dressage, jumping, liberty training, anything, being in a field with them and connecting with them.
Mhm. It makes me
I
think
think, yeah.
that time that, the time when we were in the outdoor dressage court with Elvis just walking around and the horses were galloping in the field and we were playing with the 10 seconds. Will you talk about that for a sec? And because that was a moment that sort of brought things home for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think I should back up for just a second and say that when I first came into working with you, my mindset was, I mean, incredibly excited, but I came from an angle of what can I learn that I can teach other people? What can I learn that I can apply? What can I learn? And all of a sudden it became, wow, what am I learning about myself? What am I learning about what it feels like to be me and what it feels like to be the horses I'm with? And that moment in the arena with Elvis was exactly that. So instead of being about, well, how do I get my horse, my young horse, to have less anxiety when he's away from his herd and out in the outdoor by himself, when that was normally a scary place for him. And then how do I respond when the horses take off galloping, and not for one, 10-second romp, but the kind of romp that would cause the young horse you're on to blow up and then all the things to happen. And it became so much more about, at that moment, working with you, what was real, what it felt like to be me, what it felt like to be with him in that moment, creating that space together. And all of a sudden, I just remember sitting there with him and you, and nothing, there was just presence. That was it. There was no reaction, no reactivity, no, whereas prior, my ego or my brain might have gone to, oh, great, we're headed back to the barn. When do you have to bail out? He's about to blow his mind. And instead,
Right.
it was absolutely transformative, because there wasn't anything in particular that we did. We didn't apply any,
It
tool,
was,
or
right.
we
It wasn't
just,
based on external pressure to
yeah,
get the horse to do or not do, right? And what I loved what you're saying is there was no reactivity. There was no reactivity from your mind, right? You gave your mind a different job that actually served the moment. And Elvis felt that immediately. Like, that is saying to your young horse, this is how we handle it, buddy. Right. And
yeah.
in that happens energetically. It is a presence and it's a feeling in your body. So what did your body feel like, and what was different than before when we were doing that?
I think the things, I mean, essentially that question right there, what did your body feel like? I actually felt my body in space. Whereas before, again, the brain, the ego. So what's come up with me in this work several times has been how difficult we try to make things for ourselves. How difficult our brain wants to fix problems that haven't even arisen yet.
You're right, and may never, and
Right.
it don't have to, but if you want one, here's a problem, right?
Right. There may never be a beef cow in a tree with a plastic bag waving it at you. All those things that might not actually be possible to exist. But if your brain can create, and so I think, so many times I thought, that what it felt like to be me at that moment was actually present in my body, and not allowing, whether it's the mind, the ego, whatnot, to take over and create a different story for my horse at that moment.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, no, and I think, interestingly, it's so simple that those of us who are achievers and doers and perfectionists, it's almost like it's got to be harder than this.
Right. Yeah.
You're waiting for it to fail, because nothing is that easy.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you brought that up, because yes, the mind wants to complicate it. Like, we've been taught that, like, you're really good if you can solve complicated problems, right? And if you, like, if you're just solving simple problems, well, it's all right. But what if you, like, don't even have problems to solve? Then you must not know what you're doing, right? I was actually fired when I was 19. A client fired me because there were no problems. There were no problems to solve, and so clearly I didn't know what I was doing, right? And the horse, I wasn't pushing the horse to a place where problems would have come. And I was just listening, and the horse could feel what I was asking. And so she would just go, oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
looked like, oh, you can't possibly know what you're doing. But that's the thing, is it comes down. So when you were playing with the 10 seconds with Elvis, like, my language for that is you were organizing your awareness so that you could be aware of your body, which always helps horses. Horses feel safe when they can feel somebody else feeling them. We feel each other, right? And
Yeah.
that in for horses, they're listening first with their senses and feeling the presence, feeling the quality of presence. Is it a zzz presence, or is it a, oh, okay, presence, right? But can I feel you? And so in those 10 seconds, without trying to control what he thinks, you were offering him your own presence, which can only help a horse feel safer, calmer, more relaxed. Plus, it literally changes your vision. It changes your capacity to use your vision to see what's going on. So that if there are horses running out there, awesome, there are horses running out there. And I'm still where my body is. I'm not projecting out as if I am in the field with the horses. My body is here with this horse, and we're both with our feet on the ground, and we can let those guys run. It's not about us. We are here. And it changes how it feels to be in our own body. Ponies love that.
And I would add, Kerri, to add a layer onto that. That's so beautiful. And there's so many responses to that. But to add a layer to that, and this is something I found in my coaching a lot and with myself, it's not about in those 10 seconds feeling what you're supposed to be feeling like or thinking. It's literally, horses want to know actually where you're at. That was a huge shift for me. You don't have to be in the perfect place. And certainly from the start, you can be talking through what's real and what's true, and your feet are on the ground at that moment and whatnot. But if you are in fact nervous, to just feel that, even that, I've had young horses go, oh good, she's being real, she's being honest about where she's at. Horses will meet you there. And that has been transformative for myself and for students who feel like they have to be something they're not for the horses, or not yet.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I love it. I'm so happy you said that. Yes. So
just honoring that. So let's say there is something. So for me at that moment, those horses galloping in the field, where my brain went was to all the things I needed to fix. Oh, one of them is a new young horse who I don't want her to get hurt. Gosh, if she gets hurt, then I'm gonna have to call a vet. Already I was like moving forward into the future. I wasn't actually thinking my horse is gonna necessarily drive me back to the barn, but all of my reactivity that would have started makes a feeling in your chest build up, right? And so many times since that moment, when I realized that's there, it can have nothing to do with the horse I'm even on at the moment. But if I can just soften there, or notice there, or create space there, all of a sudden you get from the horse you're on. And I don't have to say, fix it, get rid of it, go away. I just have to create the space.
And by acknowledging
there.
It, by being honest, that is what I feel. That is how it feels. And the honesty itself, without judging it, like you said, without deciding it's a problem and I have to change it and it's bad and I'm not perfect. All of that builds all the tension right back up, doesn't it? But just to say, oh, look at all of that. That feels like anxiety. That feels like nervousness. Okay. And then that's when when you're talking about creating space around it, acknowledging what is, acknowledging the feeling without trying to change or fix it, creates space for your body to relax all by itself.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And the ponies are like, they're like, oh, thank you. There you are.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's what keeps happening to me So, Vermont winters, every day is an interesting event in the indoor, whether you have sheets of snow falling off the roof or, we had 30-mile-per-hour winds the other day, and we have the couple boards that rattle and some that make zipping noise, and all the fun things. And this has been an amazing winter because I'm in there I have 5 5-year-olds in training amongst other horses, and I'm in there. And as long as I'm taking these moments, creating this space, we're just it's incredible. We're just there. We're just, and I have to stop every now and then and go, huh, the wind is picking up, and all of a sudden, like, whoa, look where I'm at. I'm reacting to this. I couldn't tell you exactly why, nor do I spend the time anymore trying to
Mhm.
figure it out.
Mhm.
I usually ask myself, what's real at this moment?
Mm.
Is the indoor safe? Is the roof safe?
Right.
Are we good?
Yeah.
As you taught me, is anybody coming in with a machete at this moment?
Right.
No, we're good. The other day, a tree was hitting the side of the indoor. I'm like, there is a chance that tree might come in. Let's go down to the other end just in case.
I love it.
And it's amazing because the horses, and again, you want it to be so hard. Those of us who are trained to hang on to needing to fix things, to rely on that, you want it to be so hard. It's crazy how simple it is.
Mhm. I love it.
So very cool.
I love it. So we're doing a 3.5 day at Huntington in May.
Yes.
And so it's going to be a journey, like for anybody that comes to show up. Some people will bring their horses and some people won't. But it's not that bringing your horse is better. You're going to get more out of it. You're going to bring your horse because that's how you want to experience it. Other people get much more without having their horse there because it really is a journey about self-awareness and getting experience, feeling a new way in your own body, but in a familiar setting, right? Feeling something new in a familiar setting. And there's so much magic in being courageous and open enough to play with awareness this way. And when we do, it is very much about becoming more aware of what you sense, what you feel, how your body communicates, because that's what brings us closer to how ponies experience the world, right? So what kind of people would you want to come, and like, what do you want to say about the event, if anything?
Um, I think, I want everybody. I want anybody that feels a call to understand more about themselves or their relationships with horses or anybody, really. I want anybody who is looking to, honestly, I can picture back to a time when I wouldn't have been openly looking to understand more about connection. And so I don't even want to limit it. If the idea of creating relationships with this ease of connection and harmony is enticing to you, is exciting to you, I think it will be a really meaningful 3.5 day
Mhm.
session. I think anybody from a person who has horses as companions, a friend of mine who runs a sanctuary, we're talking about if she can make it down, if she can get off the farm, for any period of time. But also, I think I would love to see if there are any professionals out there, especially, I cannot believe the impact to my work with young horses or traumatized horses or off track thoroughbreds. I cannot believe the experiences that this work has given me with these horses
Mhm.
and how it has impacted my coaching and just the awareness of self, the impact that has. So I don't know if I answered your question very well, because I think everybody will will
Yeah.
be excited to be there.
Yeah, I'm glad
Um,
you mentioned that, because it's a lot of, like you said, a lot of people are oriented to, okay, here's me, here's my horse, here's the problems my horse has. How do I fix the problems? Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what we're playing with is, it's just a different lens, it's a different perspective, a different approach to what over here may look like problems. And it's acknowledging, rather than calling them problems, it's acknowledging what's going on and how it feels, and then using self-awareness that we bring into our technique and our modalities and our tools and our abilities, and achieving an outcome that is the same or greater than problem solving could have produced,
I
right?
have a really great example of that.
Yeah.
I have a really great example of that. You watched me briefly coach a student where, and it was in an informal, not real lesson setting, but I distinctly remember thinking to myself, oh, we need to get her riding more half halts, and or she needs to relax on she needs to release and really let go and relax on the half halt. And there's tension, da da da. And I was creating problems that needed to be fixed for her. And
Right.
even though I was still breathing and I was still doing all these things, I was still sort of, and for me, when that happens, I speed up, right? And it doesn't matter if so this is a setting where I'm not with my horse. I'm not in anything that's a specific problem for me, but in the sense, here I am in a familiar setting with my students, with a horse, or with another being. And so that was the first scenario. And then I worked with you quite a bit, and I've been practicing this a lot. And fast forward 2 or 3 weeks from there, and I'm teaching the same student another lesson. And I took a moment before I did anything at the beginning of the lesson, and I just took a moment to organize myself. And for me, it's creating space through breath and slowing down. And the desire, I felt my ego go, oh yeah, so the mare needs to be more relaxed, and she's going too quick, and she needs to half halt, and and I started going through the training scale in my head, or whatever. And I played with something different, which was to help her find presence on the horse and to help her notice. We picked noticing the horse's back behind the saddle and the feeling behind the saddle, just whether there was elasticity or tension. And I specifically said, even though ego jumped in and said, when it feels good, fix it. When it feels good, do it. Do it again, do it again. But I didn't say anything. Went back to reorganizing myself. And I said, don't change anything. Just notice. And while she was doing that, I absolutely, I found my breathing. I took 10 seconds. I opened my heart center. I did nothing with regards to telling her what to do or half halt or whatnot. And the horse in front of my eyes absolutely transformed. And I think I called you and was like, oh my gosh, this incredible thing happened where I had this moment of seeing, if I step back and just um, organize myself in this way, and um, embrace the techniques that I've learned through you that will work with it on the 3.5 day event, amongst other things, all of a sudden harmony finds itself, right? The horse and the rider, and everything is seeking that harmony. It just happens. It was transformative. And I could describe it to another coach as, oh my gosh, she started over tracking by 6 inches, and she lifted in the wither, and her pole came up, and she's never gone like that. I could say all those things,
Right.
but that takes away from the overall, that this horse and rider just found this moment without forcefully creating it.
Exactly. Like the outcome is the same or better as what people try to produce with force, yet with the absence of force and with awareness, presence, and some guidance, of course, right? There's guidance, but there's an absence of force. It gives the horse and the rider space to actually feel the moment that we're looking for, that we're walking toward. And
And
as the instructor, as the trainer, we can assist that when we know how to create that kind of space within ourselves, right? And it's subtle communication, but it's the first communication. It's the communication that happens before words, like you're talking about. Sometimes the words are just too stringy and narrow to actually describe the experience that we're talking about, right? But when I can tune in and I feel the experience while I'm telling you, we are all designed to listen empathically, and we're all
yeah,
designed to communicate empathically. It's just that most of us, have been sort of knocked around enough to defend ourselves, and our sensitivity and clarity in empathic and sensory information has come down. So I actually really I am so grateful to you, because sharing this awareness and the simple tools and the guidance with other teachers and trainers is the ripple effect of it into horses, into students, into people's ability to go into a show ring and not lose themselves, right? And then
100%.
yeah,
Yeah. And
and
then the fun comes.
exactly. Oh, see, because it's
Yeah.
supposed to be fun, right? Like
Yeah.
theoretically, that's,
Yeah.
and horses love it. I had a friend years and years ago, and she worked at a big barn, big hunter jumper barn near Chicago, and but she worked with all the kids. And so when the kids would come, she would do the summer weekends with them and teach their lessons. And she told them, as they were all getting ready for shows, there she would just tell them, look, the happiest pony wins, because the happiest pony has the most space to give to you. And the happiest pony is the one that goes, oh yeah, I know my job, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we translate that little kidness when we've been conditioned perhaps for decades into a world of performance and power over and force and avoid embarrassment and do what you're told, and all of these emotional walls crashing down. It is possible to
Yeah.
regenerate that place of wonder and that playfulness, right? And sometimes it takes 10 seconds at a time, sometimes 1 second at a time, and other times you remember it. The moment you remember the feeling, you can't unhave the feeling, and then it's just a matter of letting it present itself to you again and again. And so these are the kinds of things we play with, and in the 3.5 days, it's organizing ourselves for simplicity and then having some experiences with it. And it always customizes itself. Like this isn't a modality where people show up and I say step A, B, C, D. It's actually the opposite, right? That's like the linear approach to learning. But what we do is it's an opportunity to learn intuitively, and for people to get back in touch with how their intuition feels, sounds, teaches them what their own listening feels like. And when you're organized that way, you can hear, receive, feel, have clarity from the horses right away. And so it's a time to discover ways to organize yourself so that you make yourself available for all of that amazing gold that translates through horses into other species, including humans. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I have so much. I can always say more. I'm like,